Our first afternoon session is Bridging the Gap, a Development Gap, presented by Lizette Scher from Bywater Solutions and Jason Robb from Southeast Kansas Library System. Lizette is a developer at Bywater Solutions based in the eastern edge of Washington State. She's especially versed in template toolkit notices, consortia, and interlibrary loan. She helps run the Baby Devs Koha US Special Interest Group, which supports new developers entering the Koha ecosystem, a super important job. Jason is the Seek and Find, is that how you say it? Yep. Seek and Find coordinator at SECLS, or Southeast Kansas Library System, in Iola, Kansas. He's been working with Koha through an ever-growing consortium since 2009. They now connect 52 libraries, providing access to over 820,000 items. He's been actively involved with the Koha US group since its inception. Over to you two.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So, Bridging the Development Gap. We have a very nice introduction from Chris. So, the only other thing I wanted to say is that I started in libraries and then have bridged into being a developer, and that was a big part of why Baby Devs came to be, was we were kind of talking about those gaps, which we'll get into in a few minutes. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I'll just say that I am not a developer. I don't identify as one. I identify as a librarian. So that's sort of my piece in this, is I'm the librarian that came to the baby. I'm the baby. We'll just say that. I'm the baby in the Baby Devs equation. Also, I wanted to, in that bio, I said 52 libraries. We went to 53 last week. I told them not to do it when I wasn't there, but they did anyways. So that's exciting.
So,
we can talk about Koha US a little bit. So Koha US is the United States Koha Users Group. We are an established 501c3 nonprofit organization, membership driven. And I want to emphasize that you don't have to be a member to participate in any of our stuff. So we've got lots and lots of different special interest groups. We meet, we meet how many times a month between SIGs, and we've got a general meeting, we've got a board meeting. So anyone and everyone is welcome. The barrier, of course, is going to be the time zone difference, since we do operate generally within business hours in the U.S. We're doing it as part of our jobs. So if you guys are interested in attending our stuff, it's totally free and open, and we want you to come. We love it when, like, David shows up to our SIGs and offers insight.
and we have mailing lists that anyone can join that are all listed on the Koha US website as well.
Yeah, so we've been around since the US group actually formed in around 2014. We became real in 2015, 16, I think, with a board and establishing a nonprofit and whatnot. So we've been around a little while, and we've sort of built up what we have to offer. And we are truly just a users group. So it's just users getting together in Zoom every so often and talking to each other and answering questions.
Yeah. And we have a number of special interest groups, which it started with the cataloging or acquisitions. Acquisitions was our first special interest group. It came out of the Portland conference, I believe. And from there, we've expanded to they're mostly module specific. So we've got like cataloging, we've got circulation, but we've also Consortia one.
We've got one for consortia. There are quite a few consortia in the U.S. We've got like 5 in Kansas now, which is exciting. We're looking at maybe bringing up another one. That I got some interest about that earlier this month too. We also have one that we previously called Web Dev, which got confusing because we had the Web Development SIG, the Development Committee, and then we got Baby Devs in the mix. So we got things a little muddy there. So we've recently named that one to co-op customization, and in that one we talk about jQuery, customizing your OPAC, that sort of thing. Less developer-y stuff, more like what you can do with the tools that co-op gives you.
And it was actually in Koha US Round Rock last year was where our conference was, and we had SIG speed dating, where we had like all the SIGs could have really short meetings so that people could go to all the different special interest groups to kind of like get an idea what they were about if they hadn't heard of them before or things like that. And we were at the Web Dev one, and someone asked me, I had presented a little bit on like the Koha development process, and someone asked me like, what are the big gaps, like, or holdups? What bottlenecks the development process? And we were talking about like QA, things will get signed off, but there's a small team of people who can do QA, but that like, you have to be able to know at least some of like how the code works to be able to do code review, and you have to be able to do testing and everything. And man, it sure would be great if Koha US had like a special interest group that kind of could help people get there. And Jason said, yeah, you want to run it? And so that's kind of how it came about. And we talked about a name at that meeting, and we came up with Baby Devs because it was like approachable. It wasn't like, oh, you have to be a developer. It made it clear that like this was new. You're new to this and wanting to learn. And we had our first meeting online like 2 weeks later, just to kind of like start figuring out a time and like go with the momentum from that conference. And then then it was a couple of months before we could get the meeting, just because it was like a really busy September time and a lot of us were traveling or had conferences. And so then we started meeting regularly in October of 2024. And we've met all but 2 months, I think, since then.
Something like that.
At least once a month. But what is Baby Devs? A lot of what we've done so far is get more people comfortable testing, especially things that require the command line, because there are a lot of bugs that will be in need sign-off for a long time because it needs to do something that the sandboxes can't do right now. You have to run an overdue script or wait 24 hours, and have it do it on its own overnight, but things like that, or otherwise manipulate the data. So, for example, one of the first ones we did was bug 38306. You had to run, it was for running the automatic renewal script. It was like a change in that. And so you have to be able to go run that on the command line. So we set up, really the first meeting was mostly setting up all of our sandboxes, getting everybody set up with their dev boxes and talking about kind of like, here's resources for, which we're going to go over some resources that we've shared later in the presentation. But a lot of what we've done has been just like getting people comfortable testing, and so that they can also go do that outside of the meeting time, but also having a place where they can ask questions, where they can get help with their dev box if they're having trouble, things like that. And we have everybody take turns driving. We always keep track of, who drove last time and do like a screen share. This is a screenshot from when Jason was writing his patch, which we'll talk about a little later. But that way we can see different setups and workflows and how people do things. Like I always use branches, but not everyone who has experience uses branches. A lot of them just do the like get reset hard. And so like seeing those different things and seeing, tips people have for like using VS Code or other editors and things like that other people don't know about. It also gives us a dedicated time to work in a group, because like when I worked in a library, I did a little bit of development, but it was always hard because I didn't have like people I was doing it with. So it was like, okay, now I'm doing it, and there's a problem with my dev box, and I have to spend all the time I had allocated to work on anything, fixing that. Well, and it was back when it was Koha DevBox, not Koha Testing Docker, which was a lot more trouble to work with, especially on Windows, which is what I was on at the time. And also just to like increase confidence, because we all see each other not always succeeding. Like even when I share my screen,
you guys scare me because you're so good at what you do, and I'm just a lowly librarian that doesn't have any like developer background. So like this makes things a little more level. Like I feel like I can talk to you and not feel like I'm talking to you.
And we record them, which is great because we can go back later and say like, I know that we talked about this, but nobody actually wrote down what we talked about, and that would be good documentation to have for other people. So we can go back and look at that. We've also shared tips and tricks, like Nick has a repo of handy scripts that are just easy scripts to run to do things like make a bunch of branches, stuff like that. Pedro also has some dev scripts on a repo that are mostly ILL related to like make a bunch of ILL requests so you don't have to do it manually every time. We've talked a lot about in Koha folder, you can do like a shared folder and do custom.sql and have it automatically run up a bunch of stuff every time you reset. So like I have it make like some library groups and assign groups to the libraries to the library groups from when I was working on like local holds priority for library groups, because I had to reset it up every time my computer restarted. So instead I set it up to just always do that. And I just keep adding things to it. So now it also has like a recall set up because I was testing some recall bugs and kept having to redo it. So we talk about things like that. And also David Nind has some snippets that he shared with us as well. So a lot of it is sharing that kind of thing, asking questions. At our most recent meeting, we had someone who was working on adding a permission, and he wanted to make sure he got like, okay, here's all the things I need to do. We talked about like the DB rev and like what all needs to be in the DB rev, who should be getting the permission based on what permission existed already and how to do that. So we've tested quite a number of bugs. They haven't all passed, but a number of them did pass. Sometimes they failed QA because they didn't have instructions, and we, even with like me, Jason, often David Nind is there, often
Andrew comes quite a bit.
Andrew from Bywater.
And Paul's shown up. You see our usual suspects.
Yeah, this is kind of the usual group. Other than David, I don't think he was at that meeting.
Yeah.
And Brendan Lawler.
Brendan Lawler is...
he's often there as well.
Yeah.
But one of the other things we did was Jason wrote a patch at Baby Devs.
We wrote collectively a patch together.
Jason did the typing.
They told me what to type, and I typed it.
So, and this was part of the discussion when we were at Web Devs, was we were talking about jQuery that a lot of libraries use that should just be bugs that are fixed in Koha, because if a lot of libraries are using it as jQuery, like maybe it should just be in Koha, and trying to like reduce the amount of jQuery if everybody's using it anyway, put it in Koha. And so this one, bug 36455, does...
It defaults the holds queue to run for the library logged in at. So I'm a consortium. There's multiple clicks there if you're needing to run the holds queue. So I was using jQuery. Guys, I have an obscene amount of jQuery. It's out of hand. So that's part of why I wanted to be involved with this, is to start like adding my stuff to the base code so I don't have to worry about maintaining it anymore. So this was one of those where I was using jQuery to grab the logged in branch code and then append it or insert it into the link for the holds queue, so that when my library clicked it, it just took them straight to the results. They didn't need to do do the second click that runs it. So that's what this patch did. It changed it so that by default, it's going to run it for the logged in library. It's not any additional clicks for a library that wants to run it for a different library or all branches, because you still get that same filter on the left that lets you do that. So it reduces the clicks for most people and doesn't add any clicks for anybody else.
Yep. And we had it failed a couple of times because there were things we didn't think of, like that link is in more than one place. We just did it in one place.
We did it on that. So yeah, I'm a strong believer in failing forward, and this was definitely an example of failing forward. So at our first attempt, we did it just on the Circ homepage, because that's where I clicked the holds queue link from. Andrew tested it, I think, and said, hey, that link is also in the left nav menu, and it's in the breadcrumbs, so you got to fix it there. So fixed that, and then it sat in, I think it was signed off for a while, and then there was an upgrade. It was actually the big tidy project came along, and then it stopped working. So I think David tested it and had to fail it. So then we got to go through the process of rebasing it, which was also, this was all new for me. So if you want like a historical, like Lizette mentioned that we have the recording. We record all of our stuff. So if you want like the historical, this is what happens and this is what happens, we actually have like video guides for that, which is super helpful for me. I can go back to see, hey, that's how I did that when it messed up.
Yeah.
So we rebased it. Paul helped me with that. I think Paul and Andrew did. And then
We had some QA follow-ups. I think there was some, I don't remember what it was, but
it was small. I mean, it was a small change
yeah.
in general. So
Yeah. And now it's been pushed. It got pushed.
it got pushed during conference, I think.
Yeah.
Martin pushed it for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Martin.
We also attempted to add the new logging diff to a log, and we were not successful during the meeting, partially because I think the one that we chose ended up being a more complicated log. It was like the patron log or something, and it was like there was a lot more going on, and we hadn't even had the whole meeting for it because we did like part of the rebasing first. So we had like 20 minutes, and we started working on it. We were like, this is not working. We'll work on this later. And so like it's not always successful, and our tests aren't always successful. We fail QA on things, we ask for more information, but we also sign off on quite a few of them have been signed off on.
Yeah, this has definitely helped me personally feel more comfortable signing off on more complex things. So like I did a lot of testing on the local holds priority groups.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could have pulled that off with just the sandbox. So it's made me more comfortable with Koha testing Docker, and I love using that. So thanks to you guys who maintain that.
Yeah, and at our last meeting, which was last month, we talked about what we want to do to continue to bridge the development gap, especially because we have a lot of the same people at the meetings, and so what are we wanting to do, like moving forward now that we've done a whole year of this? So we talked about moving towards doing more patch writing, so like using the Academy tag to find some patches and try and do the same kind of thing we did with Jason's patch, where we can like work on it together, but have one person do kind of the driving on it. Also, we've talked some with Martin about having the baby devs help QA some of the like string changes and things like that are smaller, just to kind of like get some experience with that, and also help free up some of the other people who can do QA to QA the things that are more complicated, but kind of like as a good like between step for that. And a lot of what we talked about at our last meeting was documentation, because there is documentation out there how to do some things in Koha. There's, the Koha testing Docker Git has the instructions for setting it up. But Brendan Lawler also made this getting connected that specifically has Windows instructions for Koha testing Docker to make sure that all works. And this is also they have like a large consortium that they do a lot of like internal training and trying to get more people to do testing. And so this is also for that. But we have this and want to make sure people know about it. Because it's got really good, like, here's how to start, here's what's going on. Look at the dashboard, make friends. But everything for like setting up and testing patches, and that we found that really helpful, a number of people. We also have, Tomas has just been working on this great Koha handbook, which is, it talks about the KTD setup and some of the workflow options there, but it's also just got like, here's how Koha objects and classes work. And here's like some more comprehensive understanding about it. And it's mostly this and some plugin things right now, because he's been working on plugins a lot. And so kind of helping do some of this documentation and also helping identify, like for new developers, what are the things that would be most helpful on that. And then Jason just finished the new Koha testing Docker Koha US ref sheet, which we had one for Koha DevBox that I made in like when we first were doing ref sheets.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is just sort of an updated version. So Koha has a number of these little guides that we put together. We've got one just on a general introduction to Koha. So I just compiled all of the notes that I had written down as we talked about things throughout meetings. So there's like handy commands on the front, and then on the back it's testing patches and writing patches, just some little step-by-steps. It's a draft, as always, continuous revision. But we've put all those things into Google Docs to help maintain them a little better since before they were in Publisher, which is
Yeah.
yuck. So
And in fact,
I know Google Docs is kind of yuck too. I understand.
but I think we only had the DevBox one in PDF even.
Yeah.
So, because I think I lost the publisher file at some point when I was at my old library. So doing this and helping, keep that helpful. And then this is the snippets. I didn't put links into all the things that I talked about, but this is David's snippets that we talked about, which to be read in conjunction with the KTD README. And the KTD README is helpful, and that's also something that I'd like to centralize some of this stuff that, Brendan has done and make it so it's all in one place. And so, that's part of the documentation going forward that we want to work on. And just kind of bringing that together and making sure that it's somewhere that people know where it is. Because sometimes we'll find things and we'll go, oh, there was something we were testing that we failed QA on because I happened to see something in the DB. We were looking on the Koha wiki, and it was talking about, here's how to do DB revs. Don't do this one thing, which I had never seen before. And I went back and looked at, my patch had done it and got passed, no problem. But I just happened to see it because we were talking about DB revs that day, and I failed one of Lucas's bugs. And Lucas was like, that's not a problem. And I was like, this is where it says it's a problem on the wiki. And then he talked to a couple other people and was like, yeah, I guess that is a problem. I'll do it different. This is something that I had seen in a lot of different places when I was looking at ways to do this. And so just kind of trying to make it all more centralized and clear and easy for people to find so that it's easy for everyone to find. And we're trying to continue bringing folks in. I actually went to the last Koha customization, formerly web dev meeting, because we talked about that, doing template toolkit notices. That's a lot of what I did to get kind of started when I was at my old library. That made it really helpful when I started developing. And so trying to kind of funnel those questions into the baby devs, because that's kind of a good way to funnel those people into also doing more baby devs. If you're already trying to do more with template toolkit, you might be able to, and interested in doing more testing or patch writing even. And so that's one thing we're going to try to do and try and keep bringing folks in. Also maybe partner with some colleges or coding organizations at WolfCon.
Yeah, I attended WolfCon. George and I presented on Koha to WolfCon this year. I made contact with someone from an organization called Code Day. They're a nonprofit that helps college students push their first patch in Git. So I tried to hook her up with Lizette and encourage her to come to our baby devs meetings, because we talked a lot about she came in and she was like, well, we'd really like to do this with Folio, but there's no good way to set up a dev environment. And I'm like, well, Koha is pretty easy now. So maybe come check us out. So we're still sort of exploring that relationship, but it would be cool to do sort of an academy type thing like you guys do with the different colleges in the States.
Yeah, and I talked with her a little bit this week, and with the same person that Jason had talked to before I came out. And one thing she said was that, no, they work with a lot of open source. They haven't done much with libraries, but they work with a lot of open source projects. And she said none of them have anything like this, where it's an easy test environment like KTD. None of them have a baby devs, but it's something that I'm going to start telling them that they should be doing it, because I think it's really great for helping people get into open source to have something like this. And to have someone working on that documentation that's like coming at it from a different perspective, like not from a developer background necessarily, but to help kind of bridge that particular gap. And so we are going to keep working on that, and on documentation is kind of like our really big push for the next bit, I think, before we start doing many more patches. So at least we have a plan of like, here are the things that we already know exist. Let's get some of like Brendan's stuff in on the regular KTD, and just really get an idea of like, okay, here's how we're going to write down what things we think need documentation, or here's how we're going to write it and where we want to contribute it so that it's all in one place. So that's kind of what the output of our last meeting was, where we mostly talked about kind of what we've done in the last year and what we want to do going forward. So you were right, we were very fast.
I'll just say that like the value of this is like immense for me. The just being able to like have a day on my calendar that there's an hour that I know I can sit down and do this, because my job is crazy. With 53 libraries, I'm every which way doing every which thing, and I don't get time to do this sort of stuff very often, and I am very guilty of just writing a jQuery Band-Aid and slapping it on a problem, because that's faster and easier, and it's what I understand. So having like a regular monthly meeting where I can like take a beat, step back, say, hey, I should do it this way. And having people in the room that are way smarter than me to guide me through it is hugely valuable. And I would love to see our little SIG grow a little bigger. I would love to see. I know there are barriers for people like in my position to approach writing patches and things, and sometimes they're hard to get around, like overly protective IT departments and things. So I'd love for us to help facilitate that more as well moving forward.
Yeah. But we have a question for you. What other perceived gaps are there that you think our SIG could help with? Like, are there specific documentation things that you think would be really helpful? And you don't have to answer this right now. If you have answers right now, that's great. But you also haven't all been thinking about this for the last year. Like, what gaps do people perceive for kind of making that bridge from librarian, from user to development, or at least like more testing and things like that? So if you have any feedback on that at any time, feel free to let us know. And thank you.